For many of us, Disney was pretty much a way of life when we were children. Much of what we did and enjoyed revolved around the newest movies, whether they were animated or live action. But Disney knew this, and they used it to their advantage, pumping out sequel after sequel to some of the most well-known movies. However, it wasn't always a success. Welcome to Cinema Pills. Today we'll be covering 10 absolutely crappy sequels that Disney should have never made. But before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We love having you with us, and we can't wait to have you again for our next video. With that being said, let's take a look at these Disney turds. Number 10, Cars 2. It was very surprising to many when Disney and Pixar decided to make a sequel to a movie that was mediocre to begin with. The first one didn't really have the same spark that other Pixar films had. It's quite possible that Disney just saw dollar signs and knew that there would still be merchandising opportunities. Here, Lightning McQueen and Mater go around the world to compete in the World Grand Prix race. While there, Mater finds himself involved in a bit of international espionage, with McQueen attempting to win the Grand Prix and Mater trying to convince everyone that he isn't a spy. The audience is left wondering, what is the plot about? Although it didn't do horribly in the theaters, it was still a very below-average film, a possible turd if you will. Number 9. Bambi 2. The Bambi movies hold the world record for the longest time between the original movie and the sequel, spanning 64 years. You think that Disney would have used that time to think up a script that actually mattered? It's even hard to call this one a sequel since the story picks up in the middle of the original Bambi story after the mother was shot. Here we get to watch as Bambi follows his father, the Great Prince, into the forest after the death of his mother. He learns from the prince and makes new friends along the way. Let's face it, you already know this story. The reason this story doesn't really matter is because it isn't new news. We pretty much already know what happened. Even though there was some actual effort to make the movie decent, it fell short, being nothing more than an unnecessary filler film. Number 8, Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True. Here we are again, in the realm of needless sequels. One rule that people tend to forget is that you don't try to fix something that isn't broken. Cinderella 2 was another one of those always be true to yourself movies that kids seem to be constantly force-fed. Consisting of 3 separate stories, Cinderella 2 shows us Cinderella's opposition to the court's strict etiquette, Jacques' one day of being human, and Anastasia finding love. While it did pretty well as far as a profit was concerned, earning over $120 million, the ratings revealed it for what it really was. A stain on the underpants of Disney. Number 7, Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure. This was one of the first titles from Disney to get a sequel. Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure focuses on, you guessed it, Scamp, the only son of the cute canine couple. Although all of the daughters are prim and proper, Scamp wants to follow in his father's footsteps and run free. Once he does, he realizes that the grass isn't exactly greener on the other side and blah blah blah. Oh, sorry, I fell asleep. Anyways, it's the same cookie-cutter plot. Although the movie isn't completely unwatchable, it is definitely hard to get excited about watching a movie with the same kind of story but in a different movie. Scamp reminds us of that home is where the heart is. So did Wizard of Oz, Moana, Gulliver's Travels, and 42,336 other films. Number 6, The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause. The original Santa Claus with Tim Allen was one of the best Christmas movies in recent history. If you don't believe us, check out our video on the top 10 Christmas movies. In the third film of the Santa Claus trilogy, we find Scott Calvin trying hard to balance his time both as Santa Claus and Scott Calvin, the regular guy, just like the first 2 films. But which is worse, being bored or being annoyed? We think the second. Just when you thought things were getting boring, in comes Martin Short as Jack Frost. The character is incredibly irritating as he battles to steal the title of Santa Claus for himself. Scott fights back, defeats the bad guy with some Christmas spirit, and the end. We just saved you 2 hours of your life. You're welcome. Number 5, Pocahontas 2, Journey to a New World. There are very specific reasons why the vast majority of the picks on our list went straight to DVD. Pocahontas 2 is no exception. In the beginning, it seems like it has potential. John Smith dies in London and Pocahontas hears about it back in the New World. After mourning for 5 long minutes, the chief and her tribe sends her to England. She makes it to England and decides it's time to love again. After all, it's only been a couple of hours since John Smith died. She finds this guy who turns out being the man of her dreams. But John Smith didn't die. Naturally, you may assume he would win her back. But I hate to break it to you, John, that ain't happening. We are fully aware that it is probably very hard to understand everything that was just said, but that's the point. We literally gave you the movie. one bad plot line after another. Number 4. Belle's Magical World. Here we have the amazing Belle again in a movie that is a collection of 3 separate short stories that… Wait, didn't we cover this? Oh no, that was Cinderella. Maybe Disney just made a mistake and copies the plot. Well, anyways, at least this one is a little different in that it is set in the middle of the original movie, where she was a guest in the castle and… Oh, hold up. Didn't Bambi do this same thing and pick up in the middle of the original movie too? What the mess, Disney, come on! There we go, another example of repetitive storytelling with some mediocre animation thrown in there. It really is a shame, as this was one of the most beloved Disney franchises of all time. But really, that's the theme of this whole list. Someone saw dollar signs and so unnecessary movies were made. Belle's Magical World was no exception. Number 3. The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. After the death of Walt Disney, the movies lost a lot of their magic. Some of the movies were okay, but not exactly memorable. But Disney poured a lot of resources into The Little Mermaid, and it was a huge hit. It reinvigorated their film department. Sadly, they didn't do the same for Little Mermaid 2, leaving us with a forgettable, straight-to-VHS film. Focusing on Melody, the daughter of Ariel and Princess Eric, we see a half-human, half-mermaid girl that was unaware of her mother's roots in the ocean. After finding a locket, she leaves home and ends up turning into a mermaid while her parents go out to find her. She learns the change can be permanent in exchange for King Triton's trident. So yeah, it's pretty much The Little Mermaid, just in reverse and way worse. Number 2. The Return of Jafar. Aladdin was a masterpiece. It was a perfect mix of plot and cast. Who doesn't love Robin Williams? We were left with Jafar being turned into a genie and his lamp being tossed very, very far away. Was that the end of Jafar? Judging by the name of the movie, we would say no. Unfortunately, the sequel would not even come close to living up to the hype of the first. Most notable was the fact that Robin Williams was no longer the voice of the genie. Due to conflict with Disney, he was replaced with Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson. He couldn't hold the same tone or comedic timing as Williams, and it showed. Many found themselves cringing at the lame attempts to replicate the comedy that only Robin Williams could bring. Number 1. Mulan 2. Topping off our list here, we have Mulan 2. It's hard to follow on the heels of the original Mulan. It was one of the best animated Disney films. Yet, here we have the exact opposite with this movie. While the first movie had Mulan fighting against being a stereotypical woman in the Chinese society, Mulan 2 seems to have taken the exact opposite approach. She seems happy embracing tradition, even going as far as to teach her daughters to do it. The original Mulan had a very artistic feel to it that really showed a lot of beauty. Mulan 2 pretty much was the exact opposite. Between the weird expressions plastered on the faces of the characters to their over-exaggerated mannerisms, it can be easily seen that things are way off. Sorry, Disney, you missed big on this one. By the way, this film has 0.0 on Rotten Tomatoes. So what do you think? Are you a fan of any of these movies? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out some of our other awesome videos while you're at it. Be sure to stay tuned in the future. We have new videos coming out all the time and want you there for all of them. See you next time.